Super Lucky Disaster Man. Chapter 54, Negotiating and Yokohama. Ability. Kudo Shinichi precisely caught the key word in the conversation. Fitzgerald raised an eyebrow, looking toward Dazai Osamu. He isn't. Dazai Osamu shook his head. Kudo Shinichi asked cautiously, what is or isn't? Ability? Kudo-kun, Dazai Osamu said with a smile, we can actually be considered acquaintances, so let me give you a piece of advice here. Clearly, you only saw me because you came to my house looking for Komaeda-senpai, and now you call us acquaintances? You're really bold. Dazai Osamu ignored Kudo Shinichi's rant and continued, you are not from the same world as us, there are some things you don't need to know too much about, just listen quietly, just like before, you don't need to get involved, otherwise, it won't be of any benefit to you, got it? Komaeda Nagito blinked, well. I'm not an ability user, I'm just simply a bit lucky. Shush. Dazai Osamu raised his index finger to silence Komaeda Nagito and said, if it's the detective, if he really wants to know, let him investigate it himself. Komaeda-kun isn't an assistant, so there's no need to tell him, otherwise it won't be beneficial for his skill training. Komaeda Nagito agreed with this statement, indeed. Kudo Shinichi frowned, his suspicious gaze swept over the few people in front of him. Fitzgerald took a sip of his coffee, uninterested in how Dazai Osamu dealt with those outside the circle. In his view, Kudo Shinichi was just a kid, and he couldn't even be bothered to speak to him. Kudo Shinichi seemed unwilling to give up, but he didn't say anything either, probably deciding to stay quiet and gather information. If this topic were brought up, the discussion would most likely continue, right? In his heart, he already had some suspicions, but he found it hard to believe, partly because of the education he had received all his life, but eliminate all the impossibilities, whatever remains must be the truth. Until now, Kudo Shinichi has always used those words as a guiding principle in his actions. As long as he sees the evidence, he can accept it, it just takes a little time, perhaps. Watching Dazai Osamu subdue the only person here who was not particularly knowledgeable about the ability user's world, Fitzgerald put down his cup of coffee, as if the recent disturbance had never happened, and asked Komaeda Nagito, your ability is to control luck, right? Mind showing me a demonstration? Fitzgerald at first glance is the type who is used to giving orders. Although he seemed to be inquiring, his tone was declarative, and he even started rummaging through his pockets directly, intending to take out some sort of tool to present to Komaeda Nagito. Komaeda-kun, why don't you give it a try? Dazai Osamu said, resting his chin on his hand. After all, for you, any result is acceptable, right? Whether it's a good outcome or a bad one, Komaeda Nagito will willingly accept it, because to him, misfortune is also a kind of fortune. Komaeda Nagito, who had been interrupted twice while trying to explain that he wasn't an ability user, sighed and glanced over at Dazai Osamu, who was constantly giving him suggestive looks, clearly wanting to watch the fun. Dazai-kun, what kind of outcome are you expecting? Dazai Osamu said cheerfully, I think this will depend on whether you consider meeting me in Hawaii a stroke of good luck or misfortune. My luck doesn't function like that. Komaeda Nagito held his forehead, lately, everything has been too steady. Occasionally, there have been small bits of good fortune, but besides a slight flight delay, I haven't encountered anything else. This gives me a bit of a bad feeling. If something relatively over the top happens right now. Fitzgerald raised an eyebrow, I understand, so it's an uncontrollable luck streak, right? Well then, let's play a mini-game. He took out a stack of blank checks and a pen from his pocket, and the wealthy man swiftly filled out 10 checks. He then tapped on the table and said, now pick a number from 1 to 10, and whichever check you choose, it's yours. Kudo Shinichi simply remained silent, watching everything unfold without saying a word. However, Fitzgerald's actions now made it clear to him, regardless of the abilities involved in this world. It was probably just 10 checks with different numbers on them, to see if Komaeda-senpai's luck could choose the highest or the lowest one. Rich people playing games with checks. Because Fitzgerald said earlier to make it a little simpler, Komaeda Nagito figured it would probably be at a level that could be cancelled if he tripped, and casually said, the third one. Fitzgerald reached under the table, pulled out the third one, and gave Komaeda Nagito a subtle glance. 1 million. He said, handing the check to Komaeda Nagito, the largest amount on a single check. Your luck is really not bad. An American saying 1 million certainly doesn't mean yen, but 1 million US dollars. Kudo Shinichi repeated, just a mini-game. He thought it was only a few hundred, maybe a few thousand or 10,000 US dollars at most. Ah, to you it might be quite a lot, maybe something you wouldn't earn in your lifetime. Fitzgerald, with a disgustingly capitalist face, said smugly, but for me, this really isn't much. Anything under 100 million isn't worth using a check for, and I certainly don't need to actually cash it. Truly worthy of being the boss of the guild, such a lofty proclamation. Dazai Osamu clapped a few times. Komaeda Nagito looked at the check in front of him and pushed it back. I was just talking casually, if you say it's a game, there's no need to take it seriously. Seeing $1 million US dollars, he felt like his legs is going to break. Fitzgerald impatiently said, I said I'd give the money without hesitation. If I tell you to take it, just take it. Such an amount isn't even enough for my wife to buy a dress. Besides, this million is also actually considered a preliminary advance. Fitzgerald looked towards Komaeda Nagito. I said I wanted to test your luck, and now I've seen your luck. Next, I want to test your misfortune. If it suits my needs, I can use you to make 10 times, 100 times the return. The prerequisite is that you can still survive. Dazai Osamu suddenly dropped his smile, staring expressionlessly at Fitzgerald for a few seconds, then drew out his words. Eh? Are you trying to buy Komaeda-kun's life for 1 million? Just 1 million. Fitzgerald said indifferently, if, to him, this is about risking his life for luck, then he's only worth 1 million. Although I feel that Komaeda-kun won't lose his life because of this, I still need to correct your misunderstanding. I think you may have gotten something wrong. Dazai Osamu said, Komaeda-kun is not here for an interview. I don't think anyone besides you would refuse my invitation. Fitzgerald said, are you unhappy? This is truly rare. Every time I thought you would get angry, you didn't react, but now you show such an expression. Dazai Osamu smiled once again, but ignored him, instead turning to Komaeda Nagito and said, Komaeda-kun, you should leave. No, he should stay. Fitzgerald said arrogantly, otherwise, how am I supposed to observe his abilities? Excuse me, let me interrupt a bit. Komaeda Nagito looked at Dazai Osamu, noticing that this time there was no sign of stopping him from continuing to speak. It's truly unfortunate to disappoint you, Fitzgerald-san, but I'm not an ability user. Huh? Fitzgerald furrowed his brows, slowly sitting up straight. An ordinary person. Dazai Osamu shrugged. I never said he was an ability user, ah. Fitzgerald glared at Dazai Osamu for a long moment. Even though we more or less intended to talk things through, there's not much benefit that narrow, tiny Japan can offer me. I can abandon it at any time. The implication was that if you continue to mess with me like this, you better watch out, or else you'll end up in serious trouble. I haven't said anything yet, Mr. Fitzgerald, you misunderstood, and also, our transaction really isn't that related to money. Dazai Osamu said with a smile, how is the situation with your wife? Has it improved? Fitzgerald's expression also turned cold. Dr. Hannibal's treatment is quite effective. Oh. Are you sure? I know what you're trying to say, Fitzgerald said. I don't mind that he has a slight bloodthirsty hobby, as long as he treats my wife well. And don't forget what you promised me. If you deceive me, I'll make you pay dearly. Fitzgerald's wife, due to the loss of their daughter, became mentally unstable. Fitzgerald truly loves his wife, and most of the money he earns is for her spending. Whether it is jewelry or a psychologist for therapy, as long as it can make his wife happy and improve her condition, he is willing to pay no matter how much it costs. Because of this belief, and also because his ability is directly related to the amount of money consumed and transforms into physical energy. He has an immense need for wealth and an insatiable desire for money. The psychologist Hannibal, introduced by his wife's elder sister, is considered the top psychologist in the country, and the slight bloodthirsty hobby, as mentioned by Fitzgerald, is in fact a cannibal. That's right, Dr. Hannibal likes to eat human flesh. There's no way someone could directly sell human meat on the market, and hospitals have procedures to dispose of medical waste. Moreover, someone who calls himself a gourmet like Hannibal wouldn't be interested in waste. So, for him to have this preference for so many years, it can only mean that he has killed people. And not just once. Fitzgerald is truly concerned about anything related to his wife. Not only did he investigate Dr. Hannibal Lecter's therapeutic practices, but he also conducted a thorough investigation of this person himself. Even though Hannibal handled things very well, to the point that the FBI even sought him out as a consultant when investigating related cases, still. To Fitzgerald, just seeing the other person for a moment was enough to feel a kind of unease that wasn't typical of normal society. Going deeper into the investigation, even spending a significant amount of money to hire a specialized ability user for a detailed examination, uncovering the truth wasn't too difficult. After discovering the truth, he merely mocked the FBI for their incompetence. After confirming that his wife is not the type Hannibal targets, he still chose to have Hannibal treat her. Because, in that field, Hannibal was the best. Fitzgerald believed that, given the substantial amount of money he had paid, as long as Hannibal didn't want to lose this client, he would properly treat his wife without any underhanded actions. This is an extremely heartless capitalist, for whom human life is something that can even be bought with money. However, with a lot of money, even Dr. Hannibal couldn't guarantee that his wife, after waking up from the daughter studying in London illusion, would continue to live well. He could only ensure that she wouldn't get worse, unless their daughter came back to life, otherwise his wife would either live in the illusion or live in pain. If spending money could bring our daughter back to life, then even if I become a pauper, it would be worth it. Fitzgerald had sworn like that countless times, and he had also offered high rewards in various fields to acquire the power of resurrection or related information. However, it seemed as if the gods wouldn't allow humanity to dabble in the realm of resurrection. No matter how much he offered, he never got a satisfactory answer. And the reason why he, who clearly despised the Tei Corporation and Japan, was willing to sit down and talk to Dazai Osamu was because Dazai Osamu claimed he could provide him with useful information. Reflecting on it, Japan really is such a remote little place that indeed didn't receive much of his energy. It's the same for others, perhaps there really is some useful intel. Fitzgerald then agreed to Dazai Osamu's proposal for some cooperation agreements with Tei Corporation, and some secret collaborations with the Port Mafia, as well as if the intel proves useful, he would also owe Dazai Osamu a favor. This is really quite normal. Mori Ogai wouldn't casually agree to lend Dazai Osamu just to help others discuss business. Of course, the Port Mafia must benefit from it as well. Guild, this is an organization of ability users, well known around the world. Having an opportunity to establish a connection with them, especially through a regular business negotiation with the Tei Corporation, would not attract government attention, something Mori Ogai wouldn't pass up. Whether it's the Tei Corporation or the Port Mafia, Fitzgerald looks down on both. The only reason he could sit at the same table as Dazai Osamu is that Dazai Osamu hasn't shared any intel with him yet. But in the end, such intel isn't something you can budget for, and its authenticity is uncertain, so the attraction isn't particularly strong for him. If Dazai Osamu go overboard, he will terminate all agreements. Dazai Osamu naturally understood Fitzgerald's point. He smiled while holding the check that belonged to Komaeda Nagito. Don't worry, the intel will absolutely be useful to you. Saying that, he tore the check into small pieces, loosened his hand, and the white fragments of paper were carried away by the wind, probably not getting too far before they disappeared into the sea. After doing this in front of the original owner of the check, Dazai Osamu patted Komaeda Nagito's shoulder. If you don't carry it out, I suppose it can't be called lucky. Let's go, where are you staying these 2 days? Fitzgerald wasn't angry either. If Dazai Osamu dared to act like that, it showed that he truly believed in that intel. Fitzgerald, on the contrary, was even more eager to have the agreement verified quickly. Remember to come back when signing the contract. Dazai Osamu didn't turn his head but waved his hand. Got it, got it. I'm taking a vacation these days, you guys discuss the contract details yourselves. Don't bother me. Kudo Shinichi, who had been watching the whole scene, finally asked when Fitzgerald had someone use a larger yacht to take them back. Do you have any evidence to prove the existence of abilities? Kudo-kun. Dazai Osamu, sitting on the yacht nearby in an unsafe position that could fall at any time, looked at Komaeda Nagito and the others being pulled by this yacht towards the rented small yacht. He spoke nonchalantly. This kind of question shouldn't be casually asked to others, you know, it could get you killed. Kudo Shinichi pouted. Originally, he thought he could overhear more information from their conversation, but there was barely anything related to abilities. If Senpai had an ability, he actually felt that his miraculous luck resembled one, but Senpai wasn't an ability user. Kudo-kun is really quick to catch on, ah. Komaeda Nagito praised. I thought you would be shocked for a while, considering you usually seem particularly insistent on materialism. No matter what I initially think, accepting reality is the foundation of being a detective. Kudo Shinichi sighed. That said, even so, I still keep a skeptical attitude unless I see it with my own eyes. I just can't find a reason why a millionaire would do something like this for fun without any apparent purpose, and he seems serious. Why is he able to say it so casually, anyway? If this were really a common thing, why haven't I heard of it in all my years of life? Kudo Shinichi, who had always maintained his calm, finally showed a slightly broken expression. Komaeda Nagito consoled him. It's true that there are very few abilities users. It's normal that you haven't seen them before. Most of the cases are done by ordinary people, so not knowing about abilities doesn't affect you being a detective. Kudo Shinichi, slightly at a loss for words. Senpai, what you focus on is really strange. Because for Komaeda-kun, he's only paying attention to you because you're a detective, right? So for him, what he focuses on is pretty normal. Dazai Osamu said offhandedly. Kudo Shinichi turned to look at Dazai Osamu, feeling a sudden inexplicable urge. No, Senpai said, I'm his friend. Dazai Osamu. Komaeda Nagito awkwardly nodded. I did say that. Dazai Osamu. This situation was indeed a little beyond Dazai Osamu's expectations. He gave Komaeda Nagito a subtle look, but even until they reached their destination, he did not ask the "what am I?" question. He felt that the answer wouldn't be too delightful, and there was no way he would lose face in front of this brat Kudo Shinichi over something like this. Since it was lunchtime, Kudo Yukiko and Mori Rang had already returned to the hotel. Kudo Shinichi watched Dazai Osamu, who was smiling while talking with Komaeda Senpai, and could only resentfully send a message to his dad, asking how to get rid of this guy in such a situation. Kudo Yusaku actually replies and tell him bring them over for a meal. Therefore, Kudo Shinichi could only bring Dazai Osamu along to the planned dinner. Kudo Yukiko warmly welcomed Dazai Osamu, and it was evident that Kudo Yusaku hadn't told anyone else about Dazai Osamu's identity. This great author originally intended to keep things harmonious and observe the situation, but didn't expect. Oh my, you really know how to talk, young man. Kudo Yukiko smiled shyly, her face beaming as Dazai Osamu, who was especially good at sweet talking, delighted her. She patted Kudo Shinichi's shoulder with enthusiasm. My son is already this grown up. Hearing your praises makes me feel like I'm back in the time when I wasn't married yet. Back then everyone also praised me like this, ha 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 ha. Kudo Yusaku. Kudo Shinichi, Dad, if you continue to procrastinate with your manuscript in the next few days, Mom will keep staying with that guy. Your mom was just joking. Kudo Yusaku understood well, filled with confidence in the relationship between him and Yukiko. But he could foresee that because of this contrast, Yukiko's pride would increase, and it would be even harder to appease her in the future. Not good. Kudo Yusaku quickened his eating pace. I have to go back and work on the manuscript. Dad, good luck. Kudo Shinichi encouraged his father. By the way, have you ever heard of abilities? Kudo Yusaku glanced at him. The moment his son arrived, he realized something was off about his mood, and now he finally understood why. Stay with me tonight. Your mother is staying with Rang, and we'll talk about it then. Realizing that his father indeed knew something, and indicating that these abilities were likely no joke, Kudo Shinichi couldn't help but reveal a pained, bittersweet expression for the sake of science. Alright. So, using the money sponsored by Tei Corporation, Dazai Osamu joined in the travel group with great enthusiasm and squeezed into Kudo Shinichi's original sleeping space, asking the Tei Corporation staff to move his luggage so he could share a room with Komaeda Nagito. Kudo Yusaku looked at Kudo Shinichi, who was grinding his teeth while looking worried, and tried to comfort him. Your senpai is actually quite smart, he won't be harmed. I want to refuse, Kudo Shinichi said dejectedly, but that room was reserved by Komaeda senpai. Komaeda Nagito would not actually let the Kudo family pay for him. If that's the case, he absolutely wouldn't come. In short, everyone just contributed a little, and Komaeda Nagito covered his own room costs, which resulted in Kudo Shinichi having no standing to kick Dazai Osamu out. Kudo Yusaku patted his son's shoulder to comfort him. This kid is cold on the outside but warm on the inside. At first glance, he seems to know a lot of people, but those who can truly be called friends are not many. Moreover, because of his intelligence, he has a bit of arrogance, and towards the girl he likes, Mori Rang, he can sometimes lack care, which ends up leading to the danger of losing her. It seems that the matter of his friend being followed by the mafia is actually quite nerve-wracking for Shinichi. You will think for your friends, and so will that mafia, Kudo Yusaku said. Mafia are also people, in this regard you don't need to worry too much. Kudo Shinichi, feeling conflicted, watched Dazai Osamu take off his black suit jacket. Dressed in a casual outfit, he chatted with Komaeda Nagito. Seeing him childish laugh, recalling each time the latter came to look for senpai and the relaxed expression as he left, not really wanting to admit it. Fine. This Dazai Osamu probably truly considers senpai as a friend, and there's really no need to worry for senpai. Although still full of thoughts about gathering evidence to bring him to justice, ultimately Kudo Shinichi had no objections to Dazai Osamu joining them. In the afternoon, besides Kudo Yusaku, everyone went together to the beach. This morning, I saw some people playing beach volleyball, so I joined in with Rang, planning to come back in the afternoon. On the way, Kudo Yukiko introduced them. Everyone on our side is a girl, so Shin-chan, if you want to play too, you can join the boys over there. They came together, and there's a particularly reliable beach volleyball coach with them. Kudo Shinichi asked casually, adults? Ah, the boys over there are mostly middle school students, and most of them are Japanese, but there's also a very handsome Italian guy. Dazai Osamu and Komaeda Nagito were talking in the back. Coming all the way here for a vacation. Dazai-kun, have you finished your work? Of course, in the end, Fitzgerald couldn't refuse the information I have, Dazai Osamu said. Even though if Boss Mori knew I said anything, he would certainly get angry. But he won't know, because he fundamentally has no idea that I would actually know this kind of information. Komaeda Nagito didn't ask what the information was. After all, if it was something that could be used in a transaction with a great tycoon like Fitzgerald, it certainly wasn't something that could be easily spoken of. Thus, he simply asked, why would Mori-san be angry? Ah, because it might affect Yokohama. However, at least it should take a few years. After all, I only gave Fitzgerald some rough intel. He'll verify it, then search for clues, and eventually narrow it down to Yokohama, which will certainly take time. Dazai Osamu said casually. Moreover, for such an important matter, the fact that I could know about it already speaks volumes. Ah, even if I didn't say anything, given his bounty-driven attitude, he would eventually find out about this intel anyway, so why not use it to get something useful for myself? Anyway, in the end. He paused for a moment before continuing. To me, it doesn't really matter what happens to Yokohama. That's why Boss Mori always dislikes me. Chapter 54 End. Author's note. If Mori knew everything Dazai did, he would definitely break down. But just like Dazai said, whatever comes next, it'll still take a few years. The earlier phase is definitely about gathering intel. With DOS doing things, it's actually possible to skip over this stage. In any case, even without Dazai, Fitzgerald would find out about this intel sooner or later. Dazai considers himself to be a useless tool. The volleyball beach is a different version of mafia characters. Then after a major twist in one chapter, Komaida's misfortune comes to bear.